What's up, guys? Welcome to Double Shot of Steelers. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. I'll be joined soon by Chris Halleck, our beat writer here covering the Steelers. And it's kind of funny that we get into all kinds of strange subjects. And I'm not even talking about the weird stuff we got into this week, Star Wars nonsense and whatever. I'm talking about just random football narratives and things that seem at the time like they're larger than life. One of the many cool things about this job is that there's a real grounding that takes place. And this applies to all three of the teams that I cover, all the sports, everything I've ever done, where you'll spend, I don't know, days, weeks covering a certain story. And you'll sit there and you'll write about it or you'll talk about it like it's larger than life. And then the next thing you know, there's an actual sporting event that comes around. And it just brings you like to, oh, yeah, that's why we're here. Okay, cool. Well, one of those is coming up, I'm very happy to say, on Tuesday, with the actual assembly of at least most, you would think, of the football team on a football field doing football things. And you're reminded, and powerfully so, that this is literally what it's all about. I mean, we're still going to be looking for stuff. We're still going to be poking around the field. You know, is TJ Watt there? Where's TJ? What does this mean if TJ's not there? We're going to be looking at mannerisms related to narratives. How does Mason Rudolph carry himself as QB1 in that fold? You know, is there anything different about his demeanor? Is he maybe a little nervous about it? Is he really enjoying it? Who knows? Never been there. At least not in an off-season setting for him. We can look around and see which players seem exceptionally eager to please. The ones that feel like they have something to prove. It's a Keanu Benton, if it's a Roman Wilson and so forth. You get the idea. But we're still, at the end of the day, there for football. We're still there because at some point later in the calendar year, there are going to be 17 games played that matter more than anything that happens on any of the other days out of those 365. And I love that. I'm always I feel so comforted by that. You know, I don't want to chase around TMZ headlines or Aaron Rodgers on the beach or anything else. I really don't. I just want to do football. And that's coming up on Tuesday. We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more when we come back with Chris.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
You know, love this when they're busting you. You know, technically speaking, we can start the show whenever we want, right? But John's like, because we started at 4:03, which is 100% my fault. DK's probably across the street at Starbucks. He always has a fresh cup at the start of the show. I do, and the way you can tell is that all of the shots are down here. The ice is like a separate layer of magma in the Earth's crust. And then up here is the whipped cream. By show's end, they become as one. But I purposely don't stir them up at the beginning because that first sip from down there is insanely strong. How are you, Chris?
I'm doing good. It was kids' last day of school for the school year today, so got to
cool.
do drop off, got to do pickup for both kids. They did pictures with the teachers. It's always a bittersweet day because the kids are obviously excited for summer vacation, but they're also, sad to move on. And both my kids are going to miss our teachers. Thankfully, both my kids love school, so it's been a fun day so far.
I'll tell you what, my kids also enjoyed school. I hated every minute of it. And
yeah.
I mean, when it came to everybody else is focused on when it came time for college. And I'm like, just don't even bother, don't go. It doesn't do you any good. Mine didn't do me any good, with all due respect to the people at Duquesne and whatever. It didn't do a thing for me. I would have had this gig regardless.
Right.
But they loved it.
Yeah.
They loved it. And watching them enjoy it was a really, really cool thing.
Yeah. Yeah. My son especially just really, really loves school. He loves the challenge. He's gonna miss it, man. I think he's even a little disappointed that he even got just 1 B this time. I'm like, dude, you're gonna be okay. I promise.
Guys, we're gonna take some of your questions here. I first want your thoughts, please, Chris, on the subject that I opened up with. It's so funny, isn't it? Like I can do it happens probably as much with the baseball team as anything else, where I'll do some really heavy hitting. There's some big news. They blew up some bricks. They did something else that was dumb and whatever else. And then you get to the PNC Park at a 6:40, somebody throws a first pitch.
Yeah,
and everything else just.
Yeah, as you were saying, the thing about I don't want to write about Aaron Rodgers on the beach and stuff like that. Trust me, I feel the exact same way. When the offseason begins and you kind of get the initial when you stop doing all the stuff like reviewing the season that just happened. And thankfully, the NFL has the NFL draft, and you can really dive into that. But once the draft's over, it's like this time is just all about like the complete crap that happens now. I'm having to worry about, George Pickens.
What did he say? What did Dan Moore say? What did
I just want to talk about football. I don't want to talk about what so-and-so said. Seriously,
and let's see football and let's hear football. And my God, let's even smell football, because it does have a smell to it, but it's a familiar one. And if you enjoy being around the game, you're okay with it, kind of. Okay. When you're in that setting and you see and you feel that energy that's there. You see and feel the level of instruction that's around you. And by the way, the Steelers are pretty good at this stuff. Okay. Mm-hmm. We get into like clock management and bigger decisions and stuff and being stubborn. Okay. But when you're right there on the sideline, you get that sense for what's actually happening and the level of one-on-one detail that comes up with these guys. I'm not saying the coaches are perfect. Don't spare me any of that stuff. Okay. Yeah. But this is the NFL. You see a difference between this and what happens with the pit people next door. You see a difference between the pit people and what happens at the high school levels and all that other stuff. This is as good as it gets. This is as high as it gets in the sport. And it's just a joyful thing, especially when you can tell that the players are all in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And this is a different time, especially because yes, OTAs are in the grand scheme of the yearly calendar, it's a blip on the radar, right? But this is kind of unique in its own way, both OTAs and minicamp alike, because this is more teaching than trying to execute what you're being taught. Of course, they're still trying to do that when they take the football field. But again, this is when the offense and defense are being installed. And if you ever hear that phrase, that just means being taught to the players. This is when Arthur
installed isn't happening upstairs, right? It's happening on the grass.
Yeah, it's happening on the grass. Well, it's also happening in the classroom too. Like whenever the players have their meetings and Arthur Smith is teaching, specific details on, okay, when we run this concept, this is what the X does, this is what the Z does, so on and so forth. And this is the type of stuff we're looking for. All the details of everything is being taught, is being installed. And that's what OTAs, that's what the off-season program's all about. That's what OTAs are all about. That's what minicamp's all about. That teaching does carry over to a certain extent into training camp, of course. But training camp, everything gets dialed up because then you start introducing live contact at a certain point. This right here, they're just now going to start getting to anything beyond like 7-on-7. You can actually start doing 11-on-11 stuff, but just no live contact.
No. In fact, you don't even see that at the outset in Latrobe. They work their way into that. I mean, this isn't, 50 years ago, where everybody was just going out there and killing each other right away and showing everybody who's the He-Man. And then they only had to play 14 games. Mm-hmm. It's a different world, on multiple levels, I look at this particular set of OTAs with a little bit of extra relief because they're going in still not, even if they know internally, and I don't believe that they do, who their quarterback is going to be, there's that air that's hanging over the whole thing. Like, well, what actually is the football team? You know what? Yeah. The football team on Tuesday is going to have 3 quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. It's going to have Mason Rudolph. It's going to have Skylar Thompson. And it's going to have, what's that kid's name? Will Howard will be there. That's all we're going to talk about. I'm joking. But those are going to be the 3 that you're looking at. And it's going to be, for all intents and purposes, when it comes to the offense, it's going to be their offense. Mm-hmm. I can't wait to see the whole thing. I can't wait to see Jalen Warren and, Caleb Johnson alternating snaps. Yeah. I want to see somebody, we're always doing this too. We get to Latrobe, about 2 or 3 days pass. It's never the first day. 2 or 3 days will pass. And there's one guy who will just start doing stuff. Mm-hmm. And then the way it works is those of us who are on the sideline talking to each other, whatever. And then George nails it here. Look, George finishes my sentence for me. Come on, George, you want to just do the show? But he's right. But what if it's someone like that? This was a guy who was he was really well regarded. Yeah. Going into his, coming out of the draft. Mm-hmm. And things just did not work out for him last year. But man, what if,
And that's why I think the Steelers feel better about the wide receiver position this year, even after trading away George Pickens. Number one, they feel, I think they feel that DK Metcalf is an upgrade over George Pickens, and there's a lot of reason to believe that. As talented as George is, he's not nearly as accomplished as DK Metcalf is, and Metcalf is still more than young enough to make a gigantic impact at this level. But when you look at the rest of the group, Calvin Austin took a pretty significant step forward last year. Roman Wilson could very, very much have a Calvin Austin type year in terms of what Calvin did in his second season, which was his first time getting to be on the football field, because Calvin also missed all of his rookie year due to injury. And so I am curious, and the Steelers still have faith in Roman. So I still think that they're going to add somebody. I think they're either going to sign a veteran or they're going to trade for a guy. They might be waiting until after they get to a certain, once a certain quarterback gets signed to do that. They might be waiting until after June 1st to do that, based off of, the benefits of waiting until after June 1st for a trade, possibly. Either way, Roman Wilson, he could absolutely be a guy. There's always a guy. A few years ago, it was Jalen Warren. He was the guy that came into camp and just completely stole the show. There's always, and even then, Roman Wilson last year in training camp, those first couple of days where he was participating and healthy and everything, he was turning some heads. And if that would have continued, who knows what would have happened at that point.
And the drama factor is out, and you don't have to worry about monitoring George Pickens' body language, whether or not he wants to be there, and just football, it's just football.
I'm telling you right now, if we get to training camp and the only real off the field storyline is a TJ Watt contract extension, I will be very, very happy.
But yeah, because TJ's getting signed. There's no
TJ's
drama there.
signed. Yeah, exactly. Like there will be every attempt by some people, especially those who don't cover the team on a regular basis, to try to make that into a story. It's not a story.
Mm-hmm.
It will happen. He will get signed. So
Maddie says, DK, were you expecting the Steelers to vote against the tush push? She said that as part of a social endeavor, she asked Carl Dunbar, the defensive line coach, and he said that the Steelers weren't against it, but then they did vote to ban. I don't know that it's a really important thing for them. I get the sense from you, if you sum up all of their answers on this subject, you kind of get like a, it's there or it's not there. Do we have to take a stance on this, anybody? Because it doesn't really impact them much. You know what I'm saying? Maybe if it did, maybe if the Eagles were in the division or something,
Well, the Ravens do it, and the Ravens are very successful at it with usually using Mark Andrews as the guy taking the snap.
They didn't when the Steelers played them, though. I didn't see it once.
I think they did. I think they did it one time. I think
really?
It was in the playoff. I think it was in the playoffs. But either way, it didn't surprise me that they voted against it.
Why is that?
Well, Rooney said so at the annual meeting that they were in favor of the proposal passing, which would have banned the tush push, and so they felt like it was an unsafe play. Remember also that Mike Tomlin is on the competition committee, and he has a very strong influence on the way Art Rooney might or might not vote, because the two are obviously close and very aligned with a lot of things. So it didn't surprise me at all that the Steelers were voting against it. I don't know if they were one of the ones necessarily pushing the most to try to get it banned, but they were definitely in the lane to try to get the rule banned. And I think all it's going to take is one significant quarterback getting injured, and it's just going to be gone.
Denny says, is there anything? Well, that's why the Ravens doing it with Andrews is obviously a little bit of a different dynamic. Is there anything that Mason can do over these next sets of activities to make them reconsider the need for Rudolph? Not really. No, really. It's OTAs. It's not. I mean, I know all anyone's going to want to hear is how does this guy look? How does that guy look? Or whatever. They're not even vanilla. I don't know what flavor is more plain and bland than vanilla. Whatever that is, that's what OTAs are.
Water?
Yeah, and the same, right, water flavored.
Ice.
And the same goes for even for the mandatory mini camp. There's just nothing that happens really until you get about 5 or 6 days into St. Vincent College, and you start seeing real activity and even then. What you're talking about, Denny, is making the decision to say no to a 4-time MVP, regardless of how old he is, whatever else, based on some practice drills. Yeah. That's not going to happen.
No, there won't be. Now, I can tell you right now, the only thing that the best way I can put it is that they can only be, I think, reaffirmed that they'll just continue to have faith in Mason in case Rodgers doesn't come. Like that's the way I've been putting it, that them signing Mason was their safety net to be able to wait out Rodgers. If Rodgers was upfront with them and said, hey, listen, I've got some personal stuff going on. I got some people who are close to me that I have to take care of. I'm going to be a while. I can't give you a date, whatever. And so they sign Mason and we're like, all right, fine. That's our safety net. If this falls through, we're good with Mason, but now we can actually wait this out and see what happens. If we can possibly get better, then great. If not, we're comfortable riding with Mason. So that's the entire crux of it.
Kyle dropped $10 and within that, he's like, I meant to add a question to that. So now this is Kyle staring at the vending machine going, do I have to really put another like $2 in to get that thing to spin like another quarter inch? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Do I really have to do that? Or I'm just going to wait for all eternity until there's an earthquake and that candy bar is going to fall right out of there?
Yeah.
We honor this though, Kyle. We're an honest vending machine here. Kyle says, if Pat Meyer and the offensive line actually take a step forward, how will that affect the team overall? You know what, Kyle? Immeasurably, and I mean that in the most literal sense of that term. We can't measure it. Okay, that's how big an impact it would be. The freedom that would afford, very specifically Arthur Smith, but also whoever the quarterback is again immeasurable. I had someone yesterday who I think is one of those Mason Rudolph cynics say, well, you conveniently forget every time you mention Mason in 2023 that the running game was going great. Yeah, it was. It was also going great in part because he could make the throws and he was making decisions that pushed people off the front, out of the box.
It went hand in hand.
It's all hand in hand.
Yeah, it wasn't one or the other. And the Seattle game is really a great representation of that. And that doesn't just go for Mason Rudolph being the quarterback. That just goes to show that when you can execute both the run game and the pass game, you put defenses in the ultimate, like, what do we do? Like, you have to literally pick your poison because at one point in that game, Seattle kept putting an extra guy in the box because the Steelers kept running the football down their throat. And so then at that point, they're like, all right, fine. Now we're going to start taking shots because we have George Pickens. We have, other guys who can threaten deep like Calvin Austin. We can throw the ball, and so they started doing that. Then they had to start dropping an extra safety back. And then once that happened, then they started running the football again. Then they started jamming it down their throat again because they didn't have the numbers to stop it. That's exactly what you want to do. And so if the offensive line improves, oh my gosh, it opens up everything. It opens up the run game. It opens up the passing game. It opens up everything.
I can't. And part of the reason that I can't, because in addition to being immeasurable, I find it at the moment to be unfathomable. And I don't mean that believe it or not, in a cynical way. It's been a while. Okay. It's been a while since we've seen the offensive line play that we became, maybe complacently, comfortable with for a full decade.
Yeah.
But that's what happens when you draft a Marquise Pouncey and you draft a David DeCastro and they become who you thought they'd be.
Yeah.
Okay. When you take offensive linemen that high in the draft, that's what they should be. Now, they don't all become all universe, zillion time all pros the way Marquise did. Okay.
Yeah.
They don't all become Dave. Okay. Who's very, very, very good football player for a very long time. But then when you mix those guys in, an obligatory disclaimer that he's part of our family, but Ramon Foster's there for 11 years as a starter at one position.
Who was undrafted.
Who went undrafted. But you also have to find those guys.
Yeah. I mean, and that could be, I'm not saying, obviously he wasn't undrafted, but that could be Mason McCormick.
Mason McCormick, if he's your guy and he has that fire about him, he has that extra bit of energy to him. But none of this works if your bookends, your two first rounders, the guys that you have invested the most in, with respect, the fact that we're not mentioning Zach Frazier is the ultimate compliment, by the way. Okay. If you don't have those two guys, those two first rounders become what they're supposed to be, first round tackles, first round, we traded up to get you Broderick Jones tackles, then you're going to have, it's just going to keep going like this. And you're going to get a new offensive line coach, but you might not get a new result. Denny reminds us that even Al came in, looked like just took another team's cut. Al, he says here, we made him an anchor. We made him an offensive lineman. Take it for somebody who saw Al when he first showed up as a skinny wide receiver. Al showed up, and it was, to his infinite credit, the least of the challenges he's faced and met in his life.
Oh my gosh, no joke.
Okay. Curtis Smith says, all this Iowa draft pick talk, what's he talking about? I don't think much of this bunch could find Iowa on a map. I'm missing something about an Iowa discussion here. Of course, Caleb Johnson and Y.A. Black here. I'm not sure what that would have to do with the school.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess I missed that part of the discussion going on. But obviously they have to have, both Broad and Fautanu work out. Fautanu very much could be on the same trajectory that David DeCastro was. David DeCastro missed his entire rookie year because of an injury. Fautanu missed all but like 55 snaps of his entire rookie season. So,
Yes.
I mean, they could be on a similar trajectory. We don't know about Fautanu yet. Fautanu could end up turning into a, maybe he makes second team All Pro a couple of times. Maybe he makes a few Pro Bowls. Who knows? And that's obviously a win if that happens. Broderick Jones, we knew he was raw coming out of college. That the running blocking was pretty good, but he was going to need some significant development as a pass protector. And now he's going to be playing on the left side the way he did at Georgia. And so let's see. It's year 3. It's make or break for him.
Yeah, I like this part of it too. When we talk about OTAs and minicamp and so forth.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want to give off the impression that just because they're out there and they're not really doing football things, they're in shorts and stuff, that there's nothing to analyze, that there's nothing to discuss.
Oh no,
and I want to be clear that a lot of what it is that there is for people like us to break down is what they say.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's their level of determination sound like? Okay, and you obviously can be the arbiter of that too, because we're sitting there shooting videos of this stuff, what they're talking about, and we're going to show them to you. And you can say, boy, that doesn't sound like the fill in the blank that I heard last year. Mm-hmm. Okay. So if Roman Wilson has some session with us where he sounds like he's all fire and brimstone and everything, awesome. Mm-hmm. Awesome. If Broderick Jones says, I am tired of blah, 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 that's it's just talk.
Yeah.
But you'll take it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing, especially with this particular scenario, is this is the first time the players are going to be made, like as a whole, are going to be made available to the media. And we can literally pull them as they're coming off the field. How are they feeling about this entire quarterback situation? How are they feeling? Or do they feel like this is some sort of gigantic distraction?
Do you really think anybody's going to ask that?
No.
I'm joking. Like every single player is going to get asked that in some form. Yeah. The long snapper is going to come off and we're going to go, hey, is it a big distraction to you and your job?
Yeah.
that they don't have a designated QB1 yet.
That's going to be the talk, though.
But you know what else? They're all going to talk about this beforehand, and we're all going to get the same answer. It's all going to be, hey, we believe in Mason. Let's just see how it plays out. It's not going to be you're not going to have one peep of anything remotely controversial, and it's not management and coaches, by the way, that are going to see to that. It's the players themselves.
Yeah.
So how are we going to answer this question? It's going to come up all the time. And it'll come up with some of the defensive guys too, but just the veterans. It'll whether or not Cam or TJ are there or whatever. I mean, it is OTAs.
It's OTAs. I mean,
but whoever happens to be there, they'll get that question.
And again, I think the one thing, and again, I'm trying to be as objective here as possible. If Aaron Rodgers is not there for any of OTAs, I think the only real criticism that comes with that is that he'd be brand new to the team, and it would just be better if he were there. But again, if TJ Watt's not there, if Cam Hayward's not there, that just also goes to show that it's just OTAs. It's not the end of the world if not all 90 guys are there.
You know what though?
Huh?
You and I should do a little private prop bet just between me and you as to whether or not Mason Rudolph will be at every single session.
Oh, I'll bet that now. I mean,
I know you will. I think we're going to end up on the same side of this.
We will definitely be on the same side of that. 100%.
Every single session, because I'm pretty sure, not positive, but pretty sure he's been there every single day for weeks now. Mm-hmm. That's when you have the opportunity and you view it as the opportunity of a lifetime. This is how you behave. Mm-hmm. This is how this goes. Cody wants to know if we grew up Steelers fans. I absolutely did. Just before I throw it to Chris, I'm born and raised here. Okay. And I was a very, very young child in the 70s whenever the Steelers were doing their winning. And if some of you, I think they still make these NFL bed sheets.
Yeah. Yeah.
the square logo. You know what I'm talking about with the square logos? Mm-hmm. And whatever team the Steelers were facing, I would not make physical contact with that logo. Like I would contort myself on the bed so that I wouldn't touch. And I remember that this began with the Vikings. I was like, I don't know, 6 years old or something.
Yeah.
In the Steelers' first Super Bowl, where I would just kind of do this and make sure that, and somehow I would remember this like all night. At least I thought I did. Never touch the logos. Those of you who had the NFL bed sheets, I want to hear from you. But yes, the answer to that is yes. And then what happens is it becomes a job. What about you, Chris?
No. So both of my parents were born. I was born and raised in New Jersey, but both of my parents were born and raised in Moon Township. So when the TV was on, it was not the New York Giants or the New York Jets. It was the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, yes, I did grow up watching the team, cheering for the team. I had the Sports Illustrated yearbook videos. That's why I can tell you in 1993, the Steelers went 9-7. And they lost to Joe Montana and the Chiefs in the wild card game, thanks to a blocked punt in the fourth quarter.
You're one of those.
That's why I could tell you that stuff, because my dad would order those Sports Illustrated yearbooks, and we had the one for the 93 season, 94 season, 95 season, 96 season, because that was whenever I was a kid. But yeah, it's the same thing. When obviously my first job in the industry was covering the Texas Rangers. But when you get an opportunity to cover a team that you were a child, you're a fan of as a child, by that point, it's a job, same thing. So just because you were a fan as a kid doesn't mean you're a fan now.
And the funny thing is, though, is even in the job capacity, though, it ends up being really helpful because you can drop references like that. And when we do programs like this, if you guys ask a question or you bring up a subject from something from like this, we can actually answer it. We're not sitting there researching. Yeah. I mean, the bed sheets thing happened. Okay. Yeah. Like I don't have to, I don't have to, go digging up stuff, and I'm not sitting somewhere in a cubicle in Bristol, Connecticut, pontificating on a team that I'd never had any investment in. It's very, very different. John says, not to get morbid here. Oh, where is it here? Not to get morbid, but funny how many obituaries you'll read that it'll state that she was an avid Steelers, Penguins fan, or Pirates fan. Around here, you see them get a lot more detailed than that. Yeah. The obits talk about whatever, but you know what? To be the opposite of morbid, you'll also see the babies, the newborns that are for real. People think that's just seasonal. They're blanketed in the terrible towel. That's a Pittsburgh thing. That's McGee Women's in the hospital in Oakland. That's where I was born. That's how they do it. We are who we are.
Yeah.
For better or worse.
You have those influences. Obviously, growing up in the area, that's obviously very, very different. I grew up in New Jersey. I did not grow up around a whole bunch of Steelers fans. So it's very, very different. If I would have grown up cheering for the teams that I was, that all my friends were, I would have been a Giants fan. I would have been a Yankees fan. I would have been one of God's most pitiful creatures. So glad.
That's Bayad says, did Larry Fitzgerald's dad cheer when he scored that late touchdown in the Super Bowl? The answer to that is a 1,000% no. Now, does he want his son to win the game? We're not doing this again, by the way. Okay. Yeah. We did it earlier this week, and I could not care less who believes it or who doesn't. But I do think that there's some clarification that can come with this. Okay. If there's not a reflex at all to cheer anything, it's just gone. Okay. Now, would you rather see the Steelers succeed? For a billion reasons? Yes, of course. All right. So don't get weirded out by any of this.
Yeah.
This is infinitely more about how it is that you react and how it is that you respond. Larry Fitzgerald's, for anybody who doesn't know, Larry Fitz's dad was a lifelong sports writer, and he would cover Larry Fitz's games. Okay. On occasion, it just happened to work out that way because that was where his assignments fell. No difference. It's just you don't conduct or carry yourself in a fan way. Okay, maybe that helps people come to some kind of grips with this, with what it was that we were describing. Help me out, Chris.
Yeah. So whenever you go into covering an event, typically a game, you're like, when you're a fan, you go into that game to support, to cheer for. Yeah.
Denny just nails it here. It's compartmentalization. Okay.
Yeah.
And everybody has that in some capacity. Okay. The policemen outside right now riding their bikes together as partners. When they're accosting someone, okay, they're not saying what they want to say. They'd probably want to, if they'd probably want to do some damage, okay, but you don't, okay. You compartmentalize it for professionalism, and they don't have a hard time doing that. They're policemen, they're professionals. This is what they do. They're the best of the best. If you're in the city of Pittsburgh, you're the best of the best, okay, and it's really not any different. It's just not. You compartmentalize it. You go about your job. It's your job.
It's a job. Yeah, and
I hope that helps. It makes sense.
It does. It was actually probably a little bit more eloquent and definitely shorter than I would have said. But just a really quick comment here. John here says, inwardly you may be a fan, but outwardly you're an absolute pro. I honestly have never really had the urge to like be a fan while I'm working. You're
doing the job.
Yeah.
That's it.
I've never ever had that.
There's nothing to suppress. That's the part that I think people have a hard time relating to. The other part is there's a lot to do.
There's so much. I don't have time to try to be emotionally
invested about it.
Yeah. We've got the live file going. We've got stuff we're pre-writing to get ready for the game. And then once the game's over, oh my gosh, like
then it's unthinkable. I mean,
we're not ready to. I mean, like I think I said this the other day. Like when the game's over, fans are either elated because their team won or they're pissed off because their team lost. That's when our job is getting. We don't have time to sit there and wallow in sadness if they lost or to be cheerful if they won. We've got a job.
We have several hours of work and other logistics to take care of, including a live video that we do from stadiums. There's just a lot going on, and it's just the further. And then the funniest part is, we get into the car. Let's say this is a road game, AFC North game, or we're headed to the airport or whatever. And this is me and Chris.
I've passed out in the car a couple times.
Yeah, I know.
I passed out in the car a couple times.
Yeah, I know. I took it somewhat personally because I had some pretty good music on, and Chris is like,
I'm just, but because I know, like, once I get back to the hotel room, I still got more work to do. Like there's the best is whenever you're trying to to try and think about something at all that happened from the game. Okay. And what we end up talking about on these drives home, it's never, and this isn't on purpose, this is just actually what we're thinking about. It's never something happened in the game or something. It's always, how about this situation in the locker room? And how about that guy over there? And how about that we had to step over all these bags in the Baltimore room, of course, because they're the most cramped room in professional sports. Okay. And you're like, this is what you talk about. You're talking about the job. So this is the part that I think doesn't really register. I swear we're not going to do this again today. Ryan Lytle drops by and says, just wanted to stop by and say hello. My daughter is in labor, and I might be a first-time grandpa by the end of the day.
Oh, no, that's so cool.
He says, I'm going to have a palindrome grandson. Oh, no. Is he going to make us guess?
Oh, man.
Palindrome grandson. What's a palindrome boy's name? Palindrome boys. Come on, guys. We need some help here.
Yeah.
Palindrome. Bob says, oh, that's really good. Bob says the bust. I love it. That's so good. Otto says, Richard, oh man, we're giving you some great grandson names here. Otto is the one. Alan chimes in with Bob. Good job, Alan. Way to listen to the show. Race car is a palindrome. I did not know that. Doesn't
It
make
is.
for much of a child's name, though. You guys would be the worst parents.
It does not.
Yeah, race car. Wow.
I'm about to cheat here.
Don't. You
I'm
can't.
already cheating, and they're really bad names.
Radar.
Oh, it's gonna be Eddie.
Eddie?
E-D-E-D-D.
That's not how you spell Eddie.
So what's this then? Ede?
No, it's ABBA right here.
Nathan. Wait, is it Nathan? Ask him if it's Nathan.
This one's good. It's
Oh,
just
it's Nathan, but without H.
Nathan. You can't do Nathan without H. You don't just throw out the H in a palindrome. You can't flip the H.
It's according to the internet. That's a name.
It's totally against the rules.
It is against rules.
It is. Nolan, but misspelling Nolan.
See, no, this person is looking up the same thing I am, because I'm seeing Nolan and Nathan. And
You guys are the worst palindrome people ever.
it's Google actually.
Nonetheless, we wish.
Well, I'm sticking with Bob.
I'll say our own Jose Negron chimes in and says, "Dad." Well, I mean, that's what the kid's gonna, toot. Now you're just making stuff up here. Stats. Get out of here.
Sticking
You're
with Bob.
the worst. And we shall call him Bob. Yahweh is good if you're being serious and you're not referring to YA Black of the Steelers. You like my segue there? As we bring us back into football, we're gonna do a little bit more football today here. Vic comes in and says, I live in West Palm Beach, Florida. I've seen a lot of Steelers fans here. Myself being from Youngstown, I asked them, are you from Pitt? And most of them say no, they're from here, but we grew up Steelers fans. See, Vic comes in every day. He is the most loyal of the loyal or whatever. We're gonna let him off. We're gonna let him slide on the Pitt thing. Okay, because we love you, Vic. We're not going to mention. We're going to be petty here and say that one of them is a school and one of them is a city. What else did he say? That's all I see when I see that.
Yeah.
Oh, there are. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, the Steelers fans. Yeah, it's just I don't know that it's optional.
They're everywhere in Dallas too. I mean, they're just everywhere. I mean, there are Steelers bars in Dallas. I know that for a fact. When I was really young, I had a warehouse job, and one of our delivery drivers was a die-hard Steelers fan. We once had a truck pull up to deliver a shipment, and the truck itself, that was pulling the trailer, was a Steelers decked out truck, like painted black and gold with Steelers logos everywhere. Like there were Steelers fans everywhere.
So the palindrome thing is for the date.
Oh, okay.
Smart, John.
That makes sense.
Unlike us, John is smart. John says that the date is the same backward and forward today. So the date is
5/23/25. So
5/23/25.
Oh, look at you guys.
But we should still call the kid Otto.
No, Bob. We're staying up.
Ryan Lytle, we need you in here, my man. We need somebody to get in here and make sure that we have this kid named in a palindromic way, assuming palindromic is even a word. John Glink says, do you think that Alec Pierce would fit Arthur Smith's offense? He's on the last year of his deal. Doesn't look like the Colts are going to bring him back. Maybe the Steelers could trade for him. There are options out there, Chris. There are lots of them. I have a question for you after you answer John's.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just there are a number of different options when it comes to what you could trade for, what you can't trade for at this. I mean, there are going to be all kinds of names thrown out still between now and then. Alec Pierce being one. There's just going to be all kinds of names. That's awesome. Like seriously, I did not pick up on the date being the palindrome whatsoever. I immediately went to names too.
Here's what I have as it relates to WR2, and I understand that Roman Wilson is not.
He's not that guy.
He's not that guy.
No,
but does the conversation at least get modified if he were to have some extraordinary summer? Modified, I say.
Possibly, but again, what is Roman Wilson's role going to be? Because in
It's not that.
in college, he was a slot receiver. And so if he can be a really, really good slot receiver at the NFL level, that's great. But how does that fit into the Steelers offense? They still need another guy who can consistently play on the outside. You need a Z receiver to complement DK Metcalf, who is the X receiver in this offense. Like, you need another guy who can play and do things on the outside. Again, think Corey Davis complementing AJ Brown. That's what you need to think of. Back in Tennessee, in 2019, 2020. I don't think Roman Wilson's that guy. I actually think Calvin Austin could be that guy at times. I don't know if you'd want to go in and just say, all right, Cal, you are our full-time Z. You're our full-time guy who's going to complement DK Metcalf.
Yeah, and block somebody twice your size, too, while you're at it.
Exactly. So it's...
Kanan asks, hey, DK and Chris, how involved and what kind of uptick could we see from Pat Freiermuth this year? I'd love to see a quarterback actually utilize him. Ben was the only quarterback who had a great link with him. And Pat's really never been, I don't know that if it was Ben or anybody else listen, one of the things that we can do here with Pat Freiermuth is we can say it's the quarterback not utilizing him. We can say that it's the coordinator not utilizing him. And I'm totally in line with both of those stances, but I also don't ever want the conversation, and I don't think Pat would either, to veer too far from he's got to be able to get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to assert himself as the guy. He's got to make the big plays in the big moments. He's got to become that elite third down target across the middle that can bail you out the way Heath Miller used to, and you knew that's the name I was going to bring up.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that intangibly earns you that trust from your quarterback, from your coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
And that grows over time. It's not a snap the decision. Unless you're facing a team that does something insanely stupid like the Bengals did the one time in Cincinnati, where they just said, here's the whole middle of the field. Bet you're not going to throw your tight end. And then you just throw to the tight end all day.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. Even the Bengals came here 2 weeks later and they didn't let it happen again. So he has to be involved in that assertion.
I do think Pat has a bigger impact than the stats say. And maybe this is going to be something that I was thinking about. I was thinking about a few different things to write about for the weekend. Maybe that's something I'm gonna now look into, to dive into, because I think about the Bengals game last season. Some of his biggest catches were not in structure. They were out of structure. When Russ had to escape, who did he try to find? Well, he found Pat. And it was a couple of big conversions. One of them was also a touchdown. Like, you got to have that security blanket. You got to have that guy that you can lean on and be like, okay, it's third down. We're going to dial this up, play up for him. But also it's third down. And I know that if my first read or my second read isn't there, where's Pat? And I can hit him, and we can still move the chains, keep the drive alive, keep going. Right. That was one of the ways that Heath Miller was so valuable for so long for Ben Roethlisberger. It wasn't necessarily just because he was this first read tight end that would always terrorize defenses like a Travis Kelce or Rob Gronkowski. It was also because he was just there to make back-breaking catches against defenses that would move the chains on 3rd and 4, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 3. That can be just as valuable, but it might not show up at the end of season production like, oh, he had 85 catches for 1,050 yards or anything like that. It doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be the same thing for a tight end to be effective.
Guys, I have a couple of things to say here in wrapping up today's show. The first is that it's not really Friday unless we hear from our friend the Pef. He wishes all of us a happy Friday. And it is Memorial Day weekend. This is one of those special days on the calendar that really gets confused and conflated and misrepresented by a lot of people. And we have a couple in our community here who are bringing up, and I'm going to read them out loud. Wandering Warrior says, a reminder that Memorial Day is in remembrance of all those who made the ultimate sacrifice. It's not Veterans Day. It's not Armed Forces Day. It's Memorial Day. These are the ones who are no longer with us. Okay, I don't mean to insult anybody's intelligence by stating this, but my goodness, you hear it wrong all the time. Veterans Day is November.
Yeah, my wife being a veteran of 20 years in the Navy gets that all the time. You know, when people find out or know that she's in the Navy, she'll get Happy Memorial Day. Yeah, she gets Happy Memorial Day quite a bit, and it's just like she has to remind people, like, that's thank you, but I have not. Yeah,
yeah, and even terminology like Happy Memorial Day.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you can wish everybody a safe and wonderful and satisfying Memorial Day weekend with your family and friends. And by all means, it's a heavy travel weekend for a lot of people. Make sure that you're being smart about how you do that and stay in the right lane and go the speed limit and all that other stuff. But, you know, yeah, Dr. K. Side says 6 years in the Navy here. Thank you for that.
Yep.
James Richard says, wishing everyone a safe and meaningful. That's better. That's better than what I said. It's really good. Safe and meaningful Memorial Day weekend. Let's take a moment to honor those who gave everything for our freedom and cherish the time that we have with the ones that we love. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you, Chris. Appreciate your wife's service. And we're going to be back right after this, and Chris is going to stay with us this time to go through the to go through the little bit of business that we have to take care of. You know, before we get to anything, we still got to figure out this PEF thing, because what ended up happening was we had a different format.
Mm-hmm.
People were asking me questions, and that was cool, but it was also really, I'm not going to lie, it was tough to get those and have enough of them for every show, right? But the PEF he became our reliable Mr. Friday. We still got to figure that out.
Figure what out?
The PEF thing.
What do you mean?
Well, it's just, I liked having him here. You know, that's what I'm saying.
Get him in, like in a box?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can figure that out on Fridays. Well, you obviously got to run it past him. You know,
You're asking.
We got to see if he's okay with it. You know, we just enjoyed having him. He had some really good insight. He's entertaining. He was funny.
Well, if he's not available live, he can just keep sending us the questions. We'll play them.
He actually has a real name too. His name is Austin, which is not a palindrome.
It is not.
No. Let's go through some of these. We got Russ came in with 10 gifts. Our good friend Antonio Jackson doesn't always pipe up that much. Antonio is more of a, I want to hear what everybody has to say kind of personality. He comes in with 5 gifts. Always appreciated. Jeff with 10, our very good friend. Chris Dolnak with 20. Vic comes in with 20 because that's who Vic is. Kyle says he dropped $10 so he could ask a question, then forgot to ask a question. But we had your back.
Which, yeah, we got to it.
We had your back. Russ with 10. Kerry Russell, like clockworks, dropping the 1. Stella Fierce says, Memorial Day Turner's tea break. Husband thought Aaron Rodgers' dithering was unfair to Will Howard. Told him not to worry. Will is happy and living the dream. Stella, if there's one thing that you can be sure of in any circumstance, anywhere on the planet, it is that Will Howard is somewhere being happy. Wherever Will Howard is right now, he is happy. But wait till you see him on Tuesday. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
That's going to be special. Anthony Santana says, I'm originally from the North Hills. I'm currently listening in Louisville, Kentucky. You have an outstanding show. That's an outstanding thing to drop here.
Appreciate
for
it.
the weekend. Very, very nice. LA wants to know from you, Chris, do you think that the Steelers haven't picked up a wide receiver because of Rodgers? And you kind of, and I think I know why he's asking, is you kind of hinted at that earlier.
I did. It's possible, but I don't think that is, if that is a reason, it's not the sole reason. I think another big factor, and probably is a bigger factor, is the June 1 date. Because if you wait until after June 1st to trade a player, excuse me, the cap hit spreads over this season and next season instead of the dead cap, meaning that's absorbed by the team that trades them. Instead of it all being in one season, which is this upcoming season, it's spread out over the next two. So, but I do think that if they do add another receiver and you are planning on Rodgers to be your quarterback and you really have a good feeling that he's going to be signing soon or around the same time, then maybe it makes sense to, especially while there's still several options out there. It's not like there's like one or two options left. There are still a number of options to go.
Speaking of taking care of business, Matthew Bunk brings up something kind of important, which is no, we're not going to do a show on Memorial Day. No chance. There won't be any daily shots either. We're going to stay on our, because that's the nature of the reporting business.
You're
we're
always
going to stay on top of any news, and the Pirates are actually traveling out west, which is not going to be our problem, but it's something that the company has to be in tune with. So that's the nature of journalism here.
Yeah, I'm going out of town with my family this weekend, and I'm going to have my computer with me. And if Aaron Rodgers decides to sign with the Steelers this weekend, guess what I'm doing? I'm working.
The laptop, for anybody who doesn't know, is just perpetually attached to you at the hip.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way it is here. Vic Asher, also 6-year Marine Corps veteran here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
For that. And to all of you guys, thanks for everything. When next we meet, that sounded kind of poetic. When next we meet at the Hall of Justice, we will have actual football that day.
Mm-hmm.
We will have OTAs, and we will have 2,582 memberships on the road, hopefully, to 3,000 as we get closer and closer to Latrobe. See you guys next week, all right? Have a good weekend.